And then he gave the book to them, and they read it, and they pissed themselves laughing. Can I say that? I'm sorry.
Massive. I've got a model of it right here. I got a little one. Look at that. I got a visual aid, right?
Yeah.
It's an FA8.
You know, we feel that electric is encroaching upon 130 years of fun that we've been having with the internal combustion engine. But are we stuck in our
All
ways?
the best. A
Are
lot
we
of
just
people were lunch magnets, as I like to call them, or at the grazing station.
50? It's
But not
because of the soundtrack that they got Hans Zimmer to put in it. Because it just adds that extra element of sensation. You need the sound. You need some kind of a sound. And I really like.
I was looking for exactly the same as you were saying. I was thinking, I've made my mind up. I just want him to tell me it's a good choice.
I think that's the typical influence. It's like, look, I bought a GT3, but today I'm doing something ridiculous. I'm driving an L322 Land Rover because that's what the algorithm told me to write
I'm
about.
no Prince Andrew, but
I certainly hope not. And I'm like, do you realize where you are? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, have you seen the price of petrol here? And have you seen the space we have on our roads? Whilst you're here, you should go out and buy the biggest goddamn V8 you can buy.
Because it's got this mini thing that goes, woo! You can turn that off, dude. It's not a problem, is it? It's a button, you just go off. So
we could balance what people wanted with our own muses. But now journalists disappeared pretty high up their own arseholes.
You roll up and it's going boom, 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 boom. And my next door neighbour, when I borrowed one, he said, "Guy," he said, that sounds good. He said, "I thought they were all electric now." I said,
earlier, I was living and breathing the story. I was literally, I'm not even joking when I say I was dreaming about the characters. I would wake up with a thought going, oh, that character wouldn't do that. That sort of thing was happening.
And he was on a plane in Rwanda. Of all places.
Of all places.
Yeah, and he was.
He wasn't being sent to Rwanda, was he?
No.
And I'm not getting that spatial awareness that I would normally have if I was just sort of looking around, sort of thing. Instead, I'm trying to remotely. It's like trying to pilot a remote control car. I don't feel like that's me anymore. Do you see what am I making any sense?
Remote control car. The Hellcats and the Challengers were cheap fun. That was their point. They were cheap, easy, and accessible. All muscle cars should have been. All the dealers and then the manufacturers got greedy and made the cars so expensive that their audience couldn't afford them anymore.
And I was the editor of Car Magazine, And
why were you doing this? You were the editor of
Car. I was the editor of Car. So anyway, I can't believe it. Oh my God, I was. Yeah, I was. Anyway, so...
Well, it's the opportunity, and you should never pass opportunity up. What's one thing I've learned throughout my whole life?
Yeah.
Never pass an opportunity.
A brown car guy.
Also interesting, I went back through some of my old UCB stuff, seeing as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And I thought, I remember writing this. I looked at the date, October 2000. I go, oh, that was, yes, it was. It was a quarter of a century ago.
Can you, I mean, seriously, can you believe it, I mean, how time has passed. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago when we were...
It doesn't, does it? We were
borrowing cars from owners and clubs and taking them to that airfield and shooting them and all that,
Yeah, absolutely. And good times. We had a good load of laughs. But some of the stuff that I was writing back then, of course, I had the back page sign off, which was a bit of an honour. And a lot of the anecdotes that I was putting in there, I thought this is still fairly relevant,
Yeah.
So
have you done that thing? Because I've done it. I mean, I've gone back even earlier sometimes, and I've gone back to like when I first started out, in 1989, 1990.
Yeah.
And when I start to think about how did I even write then? Because I was in the Middle East. I was in Jeddah. I didn't have access to. Of course, there was no such thing as the internet, and didn't have access to anything. And no library, no nothing. And I wrote these articles about cars and, all of this stuff. And now I look back at them and I'm like, they're not bad. And then the second part of that is like, how did I do that? It's like, how did that even happen?
I find that, I don't know if you found that, if you've read your Ulez book at all.
Have I read my own Ulez book?
No, it's a fair comment because...
No, to be honest with you, just before you say whatever you're going to say, but I do sometimes look, they're all behind me. I do sometimes look at my book and whenever I look at them, I find faults, so I cringe. So
no, what I was going to say was because I wrote a novel called Big Swinging Dicks,
yeah.
And I read it on the tube the other day, and I'm laughing at it. I think this is really good. Hold on, you've written this, but
Yeah,
I don't recall it.
yeah,
It's as though I'm reading your book
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I don't recall any of the writings.
No,
It's
well,
so
this
long.
is the thing because now with the ULIS files, because it's been reasonably well received. It could do with more sales. So if you're watching out there, buy copies on Amazon.
Absolutely.
Uh, but it has the feedback has been fantastic, and I think it's like over 50 reviews on Amazon, and they're all pretty much 4 stars and above. And several people have said, when you're writing a sequel, and I'm like, I don't even, because I never intended it to be a series. I intended it to be a one-off, a complete story. And of course, you leave a cliffhanger because you always do. You just
Of
leave a
course.
door, you leave a door ajar. That's it. But then I start to think, and then I'm like, okay, I'll have to go back and reread the whole thing and reintroduce the characters to myself, because as I
Yeah.
was writing it, and I'm sure you found the same
You
thing.
live it.
You live it, and
Yeah.
and honestly, you dream. Those characters were in my dreams.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was
Same
crazy.
here. Absolutely. It's great to talk to someone who's done it because the number of people who say to me, "Oh, I could write a book. I've got a book in me." I go, "Yeah, you try it, mate.
Yeah,
It is really difficult because you've got to live it." And in my book, there's a scene where they land in Moscow at the airport there, and I researched that thoroughly, and I could actually, I had a dream. I was dreaming about those horrible concrete walls in
yeah,
Shumenesco Airport,
yeah.
and uh, and all of the sort of grimy characters and that, and you live it, and that you have to because you can't describe it otherwise. I mean, those videos that I've been doing that you might have seen. They take days and days to do because there are 70 different scenes in each, and you have to basically prompt each of those scenes. And I use about 500 words per prompt. So you can see,
500 words per prompt.
correct. You
Wow.
have, and this is why people go, oh, it's just AI, you just press a button. Well, if you do
No,
that, you
no,
get
it's not.
rubbish.
This is
It's not
a lot
that.
of people think that, but the more you use
No.
AI, the more you realize that you actually have to teach it.
Yes, you
You
do.
have to
And the
teach it, and you have
prompts,
to train it.
prompts are so important. The more information you put in, the better it is. So I actually take an awful lot of time writing the prompts, and that's how it comes out. And I uploaded one yesterday, and I was really pleased with it. And that's a series as well. It's a girl who gets into contraband in Miami and tries to get away. She
Yeah.
ends up in LA, then she ends up in Hawaii,
I'm going to
and
ask
then
you in a minute if you intended to write a sequel to that. Before I do that, for those of you who are joining us, because it is 1:02, we are expecting a third guest, but as usual, Imthishan is probably, hopefully, he's going to join us a bit later on. He's always a little bit late with these things. Don't forget, he is in a different time zone. He's in Dubai. But I'm already joined by my good friend. We go way, way, way back, as we were just discussing a moment ago, something like 20 plus years.
quarter of a century.
Quarter of a century ago at Used Car Buyer magazine. And did I get to know you when I was at Parker's, or was it at Used Car
Yeah,
Buyer magazine? At
yeah,
Parker's as well,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
A long
So
time,
quite
Shahzad.
quite a way back. And Jeff is he's a journalist. He's a marketing expert. He's an entrepreneur. He's a publisher. He's a songwriter. We'll get into that in a minute. He's a serial car buyer. And of course, like me, he's also an author. And actually, before we went live, and if you may have caught some of that conversation, we were talking about, because we both got novels out. So mine is the ULEZ Files, and yours is, what was it? Big Swinging Dicks.
That's correct. Yes.
So tell
It's
us
about
tell us a
movers
little
and
bit about
shakers
that.
in
No,
the
is it
city.
automotive related at all, or is it entirely separate to automotive?
Well, there are cars in it, but
Yeah.
it's about some of the unsavoury characters in the city of London in commerce. And you might think, well, this is really boring, it's dull. But when I'm looking at some of the Amazon reviews and completely unprompted, most people are saying, I expected this to be dull, but actually it made me laugh out loud. So it's
So
a
let
lot of
me let me
humour in it.
ask you this, because I'm sure you feel the same way. But when I was doing the writing process, and I was loving it. I was in it, as we were discussing earlier. I was living and breathing the story. I was literally, I'm not even joking when I say I was dreaming about the characters. I would wake up with a thought going, oh, that character wouldn't do that. That sort of thing was happening. And I was really in it. I was immersed in it, and I was loving it. And of course, you have to love it when you're producing something like that. But until you put it out in the big wide world, honestly, you don't know if it's any good or not, right? It could be utter rubbish. Did you have that fear as well?
I did, but quite soon after it was published, a friend of mine who's he's some sort of jet setter. He was on a plane in Rwanda, of all places.
Of all places.
Yeah, and he was.
Oh, he wasn't being sent to Rwanda, was he?
No, they were paying him a lot of money, danger money, I think. But he said he was sitting on this plane, and there's two guys sitting next to him, and suddenly he said, "I just laughed at some of the turn of phrase situation your character was coming out with." And these guys went, "What are you laughing at?" And he said, "This." And then he gave the book to them, and they read it, and they pissed themselves laughing. Can I say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And basically, they said, "Oh, where can we get this book?" And they were, they were really enthusiastic about it. So total strangers. So I think it's difficult. It's a bit like reading your own press, really. And if you're, I can't imagine being Prince Andrew. Would you read anything about yourself? I don't know. But I'm no Prince Andrew. But
I certainly hope not.
Thank God for that. I have had a few Range Rovers, mind you.
Yeah. Well, they get given them, aren't they? Talking of get given Range Rovers, I remember there was a friend of mine. Now we should probably discuss this when Imthishan is on, but there was a friend of mine back in the UAE, and this is probably maybe 12, 13 years ago, and he was hanging out in the showroom for a Land Rover, which is the Al Daya showroom, and happened to go around the back, and he saw a line of pristine first generation Range Rover Vogues, and they were immaculate. And he was like, "Well, what's the story with these cars?" And the guys, they were like, "Well, they actually came from the palace, and basically they were part of a batch of cars that they bought, and they parked them, and they'd forgotten about them. And then they found them, and they were like, let's send them over to Altair, get them serviced, get fluids changed and stuff, see if they still run." And they said, "We don't really know what to do with them." So he said, "Well, I want one." So they asked the palace, and they said, "Yeah, sure." And he got it for some really silly money as well, because they really couldn't be bothered. They're like, "Yeah, if somebody wants one, we'll take whatever token amount."
There's a program for that, or there was, because I had one, and in Hemel Hempstead there was a dealer. They used to send them to this guy in Hemel Hempstead, weirdly, of all places, but they did. And I was having a look, and I thought, "Oh, this is just what I want—a black Mondeo Estate." And it was the top one, with all the kit. And anyway, so I was chatting with the guy. He said, "Yeah, this belonged to Prince Charles."
All right.
I said, "Oh, right, okay." And he said, "Yeah, there's a few dog marks in it and things, but it was Prince Charles's knockaround car, if you like." And he used to keep it up at Balmoral. And anyway, so I bought it, and I thought, wow, I wonder who's been in this. The sort of the history of this particular car. Of course, now it's the King's car.
Yeah, it was the King, exactly.
But yeah, so they do.
Have you still got it?
Exist. No, that went years ago. Okay, Shahzad, you know me. If I've got a car for more than 6 months, it's a good one,
Yeah. But that's got provenance. That could have been worth it. The question I was going to ask you now was, because we were just before we went live, we were just talking about our novels and the expectations of a sequel. It's been quite a few years since you wrote that book, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a good 10. And
so was it something that you ever thought about, or are you still thinking about that maybe I should write a sequel to it?
Yeah, well, I've written my sequel.
All right.
As you know, the editing is the real what takes most of the time. Writing it, once you're in the groove, is fairly straightforward. But it's the editing and re-editing and what the publishers want and what have you. So mine's in the can, but it needs the editing finished. But I just haven't had time for it. I won't tell you what the title is because it's too rude. Well, I will actually. It's called Ball Busting Bitches.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The perfect companion book to Big Swing Dixon.
Absolutely, yeah. At least on the shelves, it gets some attention. But I found, to my detriment with the original one, Big Swinging Dicks, the publisher said, "Yeah, it's good. It'll get attention." And he said, "But you could have problem when people Google it." And of course, I did subsequently find that, because if you put Big Swinging Dicks in, you get about 16,000 responses on Google of 70s guys with big moustaches. So Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You
you need
live
to
and
be.
learn, as you
I think you
said.
need to be on a VPN before you do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Dear, oh dear. So in your because as you just mentioned there, you're a serial car owner and seller. So what cars have you got at the moment?
At the moment, nothing too exciting really. Um, I've got a BMW. Well, actually, this is exciting because it's quite rare now. BMW 735i in Luxor, which is a sandy, sort of metallic sandy
So
colour.
hang on. So what year is that, and what
This one's
what E number is that?
it's an E32, 1989, and my father bought it new, and when he died, he left it to me, and I've had it longer than he had it now. I've just had it detailed, and the detailer said, "This is incredible." You know, it's done 54,000 miles from new,
Wow.
full history, full service history. It's immaculate. It's I guess the thing with this is that it's a very rare color combination. Most of these had black interior. This one's got a light beige, and it's a sandy sort of champagne color outside, and it's the only one left of this model in the UK,
I mean,
still on the road.
it does look, absolutely stunning, that car.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I've had Aston Martins, as you know, and all sorts of stuff, and Porsches. But when I brought this back from the detailers the other week, I parked it up in a lay-by just to take some photographs whilst it wasn't raining, and this car stopped, and two guys got out, and I thought, oh, here we go. But they came up and said, "My God, you just don't see these. It's immaculate," and they were swarming around it. And then a couple of trucks went past, and it's like boop, thumbs
Yeah,
up, you know.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I'm thinking, I've never had this sort of reaction with any of the sort of high end stuff I've had. So it's there is this thing about classics, and the cars, you know, because you've seen it. It looks fabulous, and I'll never sell it. It's just in me
No,
now.
don't sell it because I'm regretting selling because mine was also 1989.
You had the
E30,
E30, didn't
the
you? The
E30
3 Series.
325i, and it's just like you say, the reaction that you would get. I mean, you wouldn't get that reaction if you were driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or whatever. In fact, case in point, I do some stuff for the Drivers Union, which is a big supercar club, multi-mark supercar club. And they do this thing at Brands Hatch where they do the live demo runs and what have you. And one time, and they park the club members' cars there. So they got, top of the range, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, etc., you name it, all lined up. And in the middle of that, I parked my BMW, and I sort of put it in the corner a little bit because I was like, okay, it's not, it doesn't quite match this crowd. But I tell you what was the car that was getting the most attention?
Yeah, of course.
It was a bit embarrassing, I think, for the supercar owners because everybody kept sort of sauntering up to the BMW and wanting to chat about that. And it's incredible because the attention that it gets, and even when it's out on the road and stuff like that, and cars like your car and that one, because it's such a part of the fabric of automotive culture and automotive history that anybody that sees that immediately is like, my dad had one, my uncle had one, I used to have one, or they have some story to tell about it. And it's incredible how people relate to that, and it's an incredible nostalgia trip. I used to call it my time warp car.
Well, yes, of course it is. I mean, and there's a school of thought there because when you look at fast Fords or even not so fast Fords, I saw a Capri 1300 go the other day for 15 grand. You think, geez. But it's because it's exactly the same thing. It's that we had one of those. We used to go down to Canberra Sands in it, that sort of thing. And it's you want when you get to a point where you might have an income that's reasonable and a bit of disposable. You might think, I want to relive my youth
Yeah.
and just do that. And it's. I mean, my first car was an MG Midget. They used to call me a midget driver, which I was quite short in those days. And the thing I found with it though was that you couldn't pull the girls because they go, "I'm not getting in that." I go, why? Oh, I'll have to. I can't wear this short skirt in it. I can't get out. And it's too small. You couldn't bring your knees and elbows or anything like that. You would not fit in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So so I swapped it, sadly, but I did swap it for an Audi 100. You know, the very first series going way back to
Yeah.
1970, and it transformed my sex life.
Yeah. Go on, elaborate. Now that you've
No, I
gone
can't
down,
go any
now that
further.
you've gone down that route.
Although I would say the reason I got it was because my dad wouldn't let me his Volvo estate. He said,
Right.
"Son," he said, "that thing's got a 6 foot load space with the seats down. You're not having that."
Uh,
So
You know,
yeah, he
it was
didn't make me
something that I
hanky
was
panky.
mentioning on the last podcast that we did with some of the guys, and I was talking about, because you just reminded me in what you said there, in that how a car can actually dictate your life or your personality. You know, so in the sense that when I got that, I bought a 1984 Celica Supra. You know, it had the pop-up lights, it had the wedge shape, a straight six engine, you know, it had the digital dashboard. For the day, it was a cool car. I mean, this was in the early 90s that I had it. And all of a sudden, I found that I started to dress differently. And I started to take more care about how I looked and how I presented, you know, because suddenly you thought, well, you got a cool car, you got to look cool enough to be the owner of that car.
Absolutely, the things are intertwined. I mean, some of the cars that I've had, I mean, that I guess I've imitated fantasy. I mean, one that I've always wanted. Cause I was used in the 70s. I used to love this TV series, Cannon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Frank Cannon. He was a
yeah,
corpulent detective.
yeah, yeah,
That's fat to you and me.
yeah.
And
I think we
he
can say fat.
and he had a little moustache, and
Yeah.
you know, he was not anyone's idea of a sex symbol, but he was pretty cool. But he drove a Lincoln Continental, originally Continental Mark IV, and then Mark V as the series went on. And I've always liked those. I don't know why, but I like American cars anyway. But I thought, "Phew, I'd love one of those." Anyway, I was in Miami, and I was chatting with a friend over there, and he said, "Oh, I'll take you down to the car place." So I went down to this dealer, and in the corner of the showroom, which is a massive warehouse, was this Lincoln Continental Mark V, 1978, Bill
Yeah.
Blass edition. And
Wow.
you might not know what that is, but it's Bill Blass is an American designer, was an American designer. He had this thing about blue and white. So it was white with white leather and white vinyl roof, and it had a blue streak along the side. I thought, I've got to have that. How much is it? He said $1,200. I said, I'll have it. It needs a bit of work. Anyway, I shipped it over, and there I was in rural Gloucestershire at the time with these little lanes and this massive sort of 20-foot long two-door Lincoln. Yeah, so that was that, and I knocked about in that around the Gloucestershire lanes for about a year because I enjoyed it so much.
No, it's an amazing car. It's one of the best ones out there. A good buddy of mine that I grew up with in Saudi Arabia was a massive fan of the Lincoln. Anyway, we are finally joined by Imthishan. Hello, Imthishan. You decided to
Hello.
join us. By the way, can you go
Howdy, Andy over
can you
here.
go landscape? Can you go landscape?
Hold on, this can
Yeah.
be a bit
Yeah,
difficult.
just rotate by 90 degrees. There you go.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, that's better. At some point, that might correct itself.
Didn't do it. Didn't do it. Let me leave and do it
Yeah,
again.
leave and come back in again. Let's see if that
Yeah.
works. But
Yeah. Anyway,
no,
so
it's a glorious machine. It really is.
there was a song came on the radio the other day. "Son, you know you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln." And I
Yeah.
thought, oh my God, it brought all of the memories flooding back of it. You know, I wonder where it is now.
I mean, they are such epic things. I mean, literally, it is rolling art, isn't it? It's rolling theatre. It's just absolutely incredible. There you go. There you go.
Hey,
There we are. So,
Yeah.
Imthishan, meet Jeff. Jeff, meet
Hi,
Imthishan.
Jeff.
Jeff, I've worked with for decades. We worked out
quarter of a
over
century.
quarter of a
we've
century.
looked at.
And Imthishan, I've probably worked with longer than anybody else. We're out in Dubai. He was
Not
we
decade.
worked together on Car Magazine, and then we founded Motoring Middle East. And now he's a freelancer. You've done Millia and all the rest of it. And he was with us last week. We were talking just now before you came on about the Lincoln Continental, about cars that shape your personality. And Jeff bought a Lincoln. When was that? How long ago was that?
That was around about 1990.
Wow.
So it was
Driving a
what?
Lincoln around the
Suicide
UK.
door, Lincoln.
Lincoln Mark V, Bill Blass edition.
Which is that one?
It's white leather, white vinyl roof, and blue strakes.
Oh my God! Oh, this is the 70s era. I was thinking of the 60s one. The sort of the
No,
entourage.
no, 70s. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so you can see it. Kind of Bill Blass. There's only one color scheme, and that's
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Bloody hell.
And it was inspired by the TV show. What was that? Frank Cannon?
Cannon. Yeah,
Yeah.
Frank Cannon. Yeah.
We're all just kids. We just want to be like in our TV shows. That's what
Of
I worked out.
course. No, we were talking about this just now. That the
Oh, this is
you,
cool as shit. Pardon my French. This is a cool car.
it is
Sorry, yeah.
cool. Oh my God, yeah. As I say, but the round the really narrow lanes of where I used to live, I was very well known because once you drove that down the lane, no one else could get through, and it was just so easy to drive as well. People think, oh my God,
Easy
that's
for
really good.
you, but maybe not easy for the other people sharing the road with you.
Correct. But see, that's exactly what we were talking about this earlier. That's exactly what I find now. Fast forward to 35 years, and I find that if I'm driving any sort of normal car around where I live, it's traumatic because what's happening is the roads are still no wider, but the problem is everyone's driving in the middle of the road because we've got potholes. So you come around the blind bend, you think, whoa, there's a transit van, and it's right in the middle of the road, and so it's very, very stressful. So I was saying to Shahzad, um, I was driving an X5 yesterday, and it was stressing me out. So I came back home and I swapped it out for my smart car, the 4.2, and brilliant, no stress at all because okay, you've got to avoid the potholes because there's no suspension in it. But even if you do avoid the potholes, you've still got loads of road because it's so small. And then you get where you're going, and you can park it in the
But
Tesco trolley park. It's
cars
great.
are so much bigger now. Like, I mean, my dad's Honda Civic in '86, I think, is one of the last boxy ones before they started to get all swoopy and Pininfarina style, right? The one that I've got now, the Type R, is massive. And not only is it massive, it's wide because it's wide body, because it's developed to be on the bloody Nürburgring of all things. So it is not a compact car. It is more like a small, compact, semi-detached. So
Well,
it doesn't actually fit anywhere that
here's
easily.
the thing with this is that I've one of my current cars is an electric Mini Cooper S. Okay, and I thought I'm just going to dip my toe in the water and see, and it's a great car actually. It actually handles and it's got a great turn of speed, and of course 100% torque at any speed it's just better than the petrol version. I've driven all of them. This is far better. Anyway, but I was looking at it the other day. I was trying to park it, and it's the level 3 model with cameras everywhere, and it's got a 360 bird's eye view. I think I'm still having trouble parking this, and I thought, oh, anyway. So I I sort of followed my hunch, and I went indoors and I had a look at the size of a Ford Escort because I've been watching the Sweeney, another one of my sort of heroes. I can't. I look at all the 70s cars on it, and the Mark One Ford Escort that Jack Regan was driving in this, and I thought that don't look very big. Anyway, so I went indoors and I googled the the dimensions of both my Mini and the Mark One Ford Escort, and do you know what? They're identical within a centimetre. Identical. So what was actually a reasonably big car in the 70s, my Mini is the same size, so it isn't a Mini. And it just isn't. It's just so that this is how things have ballooned. You're quite right about the Civic because that's what's happened. I don't know why they just don't rename the cars. Once they go up a level,
Well,
why
the
That should be
Civic,
the
they?
new Accord. I mean,
yeah,
my
the Civic
Civic,
is the current Civic is bigger than the original Accord, way bigger than the original
Yeah,
Accord.
my
But like you
Civic
say
is
with the
actually
Mini, I also
wider
found
than
the
my
same
Land
thing.
Cruiser.
So with my BMW E30 that I had, which was 1989, which at the time was a upper executive level car, the new Mini, the current Mini, is the same width as that was back in the day. So it's incredible.
yeah.
But I'm glad you said that about the parking with all the because I'm glad that I'm not the only one. Where now you have all the cameras, you've got the 360, you've got the cameras and the mirrors and the fenders, and yet now I find it more problematic than I ever did without the cameras, and I haven't quite figured out why that is.
No,
Is it because of the C pillars? Because the C pillars are massive now in these cars. Because of the
I,
styling and blah, blah, blah. The belt
Imthishan,
line is
Imthishan,
high.
I think it's disorientation. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, I
Because
do.
once you're there and you're looking at the screen, and I'm not getting that spatial awareness that I would normally have if I was just sort of looking around, sort of thing. Instead, I'm trying to remotely. It's like trying to pilot a remote control car. I don't feel like that's me anymore. Do you see what
And I don't trust
am I
it.
making
I'm pretty
any
good at
sense?
remote control cars, I must say. I think that's an advantage of being young. The difference,
We are young.
young at heart, gentlemen, young at heart. The thing is, right, you're exactly right. You can't drive these cars because you're used to looking at them on screens. I haven't turned my head in years to see what's behind me. In absolute years.
I
I
tried it
still
the
do
other
it.
day. It didn't half hurt. I was like,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan.
No,
That's the thing.
I
Like,
still do.
why
I
would you
still do
turn
that
your
thing
head?
where I put my arm around the seat and then I just go back, look like that, and then just reverse. But it's a little bit. Some things hurt now when I do that. I don't know why.
it's
You
lack
know
of
what?
use.
People, it's all well and good being in your garage, right? But then it's when, because why does this happen? It's because car companies have tried to make everybody happy. So your Mini's got to be able to seat a family of five and take their shopping and be electric and have cameras, and it's gotten big and fat and heavy and complicated. Same for just about every car. Even my little Type R, which is about as stripped down as you're gonna get, is still massive. I got a little model of it right here. I got a little one. Look at that. I got a visual aid, right?
Yeah.
This is an FK8. I just unboxed it today. It's lost all its value.
What's that? Hot Wheels.
Yeah. And the Type R now has to be able to also be a shopping trolley somehow. But you look at an old EG6 from the 90s, whatever, that car can be made into a race car because
You,
it has
you know,
nothing in it.
it's funny you mentioned that because I was at a garage just the other day, and in the garage they had something buried inside there that they were working. They had a paint shop, and next to the paint shop there was something in the corner, and I like caught my attention. I was like, "Do you mind if I just come in?" And I went inside, and I was looking at it. This is a Civic Coupe. It was like an early '90s Civic Coupe. I was like, "Where did you get that from?" I mean, back in the day, they were no big
That's
deal, but
American, isn't it?
seeing it now, it was like, "Whoa, it's a Civic Coupe," and it looked fantastic.
But I guess this is the thing, because we were talking about this, Imthishan, before you got here. We were talking about bread and butter cars from the past that, they don't exist anymore because they're all scrapped. Whereas you've got loads of E-types, they're 10 a penny, which were, the thing in the day. But cars from that same era, say, I don't know, Austin 1800. When's the last time you saw one of those? And or I saw one the other day, which was, and it wasn't at a classic car show. It was actually on the road. It was a Wolseley 2200.
Yeah.
So it was the old Land Crab, but it was a Wolseley. I
Yeah.
thought, wow, this is as rare as rocking horse manure,
I saw a Hillman Imp recently, and I was like, "Whoa, a Hillman Imp!" And I remember the first time I ever became aware of a Hillman Imp. I was going to primary school. I was walking to school, and it was a junction, and somebody cut one up, and the Hillman Imp, he took avoiding action, and he immediately did a 360.
yeah.
Nice.
Well, actually, the
I
thing
bet he
is,
talked about the rest of his life.
with Hillman Imps, they were very tail happy. A friend of mine from school days, when we were just out of school, we used to go down the pub and we had a designated driver, and he had a Sunbeam Stiletto, which was the fastback version. We were sober when he drove because it always broke down, and we'd have to get the bus or something. So no one could drink because we was in the middle of nowhere. This thing would break down, and it would
I'll tell
usually
you
be.
what, though, this stiletto isn't half cool, though.
It is
Well, I
cool
do like it.
now. It wasn't then. It overheated all the time. And
That's really cool looking.
But it's an interesting car. Of course, one of the few cars made in Scotland, because in Glasgow. I was gonna make a negative comment there, but I won't, because
Did it pre-rust?
Scots people, you're okay. But
Being diplomatic now. It's a safe space, guys.
mind you, talking about being diplomatic, I was following something this morning, a car, and it had a bumper sticker on it, and it said, "Jesus saves, but Reeves takes it back."
Oh, that's actually quite good.
That's what I thought, actually. It was obviously quite a new bumper sticker
Yeah,
because, we've only had her for a year.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
But
it's
we
so
touched
true.
on coupes, and it was one of the things that you wanted to talk about, Jeff, was the four door, and because back in the 80s and 90s, I remember the Japanese would turn all of their cars into coupes. If it was a Corolla or an Accord or a Civic, whatever, they had to have a coupe version of everything. And now we hardly have any coupes at all.
But
What's
they
the
weren't
last one?
compromised. You could use them every day. They had a boot. They were just slightly smaller sedans. They're not like they had to be. They didn't have to be on the Nürburgring. They were just kind of for people who were young but didn't want to be old.
Yeah,
Well, this exactly, but I mean, the Capri was the
yeah.
archetypal one. I mean,
But it's
that
like a
was the thing that.
purpose-built sports car. That
It was
wasn't
a sports
really.
car, yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
I agree with you, but the Capri is actually like cool. But a Civic Coupe is for a person who's like, I want a Civic, but I want to be a little bit flash, just
yeah,
a little bit, just a
yeah.
little.
But you see, what I've got to say to you is that because you're on the other side of the world, Civics have never been cool over here. And
Oh, out here they are. They're nothing
no,
cool
no,
out here.
see, no,
They're
don't
not cool.
agree. They've never been cool here. They've just been, Jap boxes. But the thing is that they're not, because they've always had fantastic engines. They've handled well, and they've been bloody reliable. So from that point of view, I agree with you on that. But I can't be responsible for the way the British look at style, because if you put a Civic and a
Do you
Capri up
think?
for sale,
Can I ask you, Jeff, and
go on.
also can I ask you from the point of view of being a veteran motoring journalist as well? Do you think? Because Imthishan will know what I'm getting at because we've discussed this a few times. Do you think that there's been a certain bias in the British media through the years, especially if you look at the 80s and 90s, against Japanese cars?
Yes, well, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, there has. And the further you go back, the worse it is. Uh, And of course, motoring journalism has changed, as you know, Shahzad. When we were starting out yonks ago, it was a different type of landscape. But and you had to know something about cars. I mean, I look at some of these so-called influencers on YouTube. Some of them are really good,
Yeah,
but some
yeah.
of them are just awful. They don't actually know about the product, that's. I mean, there's somebody who I like a lot. You probably know her, Tish, who runs
Yeah,
Also Social.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was chatting to her
I met her the other day. We were at the Suzuki event.
yeah, I was chatting to her the other day. But it wasn't the same one, was it? Same place. But she's got a good style about her. She knows what she's talking about. She knows, but she's the thing. Why I think she's a proper motoring journalist for the era is because she relates the product to the people buying it. Whereas I think, way back, the journalists were using superlatives on stuff when you think, well, hold on, I can't even afford that thing, and it's not relevant to me, and certain things like, oh, the handling is absolutely fantastic, and but if it doesn't do what it says on the tin, I get your family in, you're not going to be interested. And so the number of car enthusiasts compared to the overall population is relatively small. People want the product to do what they want it to do. They're not worried about the final nth degree in handling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Sorry, I'm monopolising this conversation, but the trouble is, he doesn't have me on very often because I just keep talking. But the a Volvo, right? The other half decided she wanted to get the dogs in the back of a Volvo estate. I said, I'm not having one of those XC90 things. I said, we'll go for the V90 estate, which is a lovely car. It's basically the same floor plan, but lower. And you don't get any abuse either. Volvo estate is cool. XC90 is an SUV, and you get the middle finger all the time. So, from an image point of view, this was great. But it was the T8, and I had it Polestar tuned, so it was putting out 470
Wow.
horsepower, and it suddenly made me think, wow, Aston Martin DB9 had 470 horsepower. So a 6 litre V12 has got the same horsepower as a 2 litre Volvo. But of course, that Volvo was supercharged, turbocharged, and electrified as separate propulsion means. Anyway, the thing is, bought it and it was very quick, obviously. Yeah, 0 to 60 in 4.08 seconds. But the thing about that is that when it comes down to the image, it's one of those vehicles that doesn't elicit any negative response. Whereas if you're driving something like I don't know, Mercedes AMG estate, it has a different connotation. We were talking about this very fact earlier. Volvos, although people think they're boring, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to my original point, it did what it said on the tin. It could get 3 dogs in, all your luggage, and all your Christmas hampers, and God knows what else. And it was great. It did everything it said on the tin. However, I didn't like the handling, being a car enthusiast, because of course the battery, although the battery sits down the spine of the car as opposed to underneath, it's fairly well balanced, but you could feel the weight. You put it into a corner, and the understeer, it just wants to go wide because it's just got that huge mass to it. Whereas she had a Volvo Estate T5 turbo, just a turbo version before, and that was quite nimble. It felt like it was a ballerina compared to this. This felt like Mike Tyson, although in a straight line it could outdrag my DB9. But go figure. But it wasn't fun, and so going back to the doing what it says on the tin thing, you got to ask yourself, did it do what it said on the tin? Yes. Was it fun? No. So, but I'm rare. I'm just one of those motoring enthusiasts. But I can guarantee, 90% of the people who bought that didn't buy it for its handling finesse,
No.
Can I tackle Jeff's points in order since I've been making mental
Go
notes?
for it.
Yes.
Let's go in reverse order. The issue with your Volvo is you tried to make it do something it wasn't meant to do, right? So the tune is a nice thing that they sell you on in Europe, like, oh, you can make your BMW as fast as an M3. And I did that. I had a BMW. I made it as fast as an M3, but it wasn't an M3 because when you throw it into a corner, then you think, it doesn't have the bushings. It doesn't have the shocks. It doesn't have the stiff everything. It still kind of leans a bit. And I can make it sort of do it, but it'll never be an M3 in the way the steering is geared, in the rack, and the brakes, and the angle, and the camber, and the blah, blah, blah. Never get the power upgrade is what I'm saying, because it's a trap. They sell you a bit of money. You'll never use the power. Do you mat 100% to the floor? No, you don't.
Can I just demolish that argument because
Go on.
because it isn't horsepower that you get with the Polestar tune. This is the Volvo approved one. It's torque. It's torque, and that's what I'm big on, torque, not power. And the torque changed the way it drove every day. But I think the amount of extra horsepower was 10 with that upgrade. So it wasn't giving it loads and loads of power. It was just giving it loads and loads extra torque where you really wanted it. But I do take your point. In the old Max Power days when that magazine was ruling everything in 1995, was that it's you just bolt a straight through exhaust on a 1 litre Mini or something, and it'd be great. But it isn't. And the whole thing is that this is why a Mazda MX-5 is so great, because it's greater than the sum of its parts. It's not powerful, but it's nimble. It handles. I mean, Shahzad, you'll know this when we go to Millbrook for the Society of Motor Manufacturers driving day. You can take it on the high speed bowl, or the one I like is the mountain, the Alpine course, where you get hairpins.
That's pretty much exclusively what I do. I never go on the bowl.
No, I don't either. There's no point. you get a car which you think is going to be absolutely fantastic. You get to one of these hairpins, and it's like, whoa, this is not so good. Whereas some of the one that got me actually at this year's one was that little Honda Electric. I can't remember what it's called. It looks like a
I don't.
bob.
I didn't drive it. I didn't
I
drive it.
can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
It just
The
looks like a
Honda E.
tele.
Do you mean the Honda E?
No, it's not
Okay.
that. It was the was it Honda? Actually, now you got me because I
No, because
drove it.
I can't remember what else they had there. Because I don't think they had the Honda E because that's been out a few years.
It might not have been,
So it might be
but
one of the
it
others.
was as a motoring guy, I should remember it.
You
But
should do,
but
but that's the other problem is that nowadays I'm forgetting. I even when I walk down the streets, I can't recognize half the cars anymore. Whereas
no,
as a
no,
kid, I
yeah.
would know that. Hey guys, while I've got your attention, make sure that you hit like, share, and subscribe and support independent journalism channels like mine. You can do that at patreon.com, coffee.com, and of course, right here on YouTube, you can take out a voluntary paid subscription or you can buy my books. I've got 3 books out at the moment: a full action thriller, The Ulez Files, a collection of short stories, The Quantum Races, and How to Do What I Do, How to Be an Automotive Content Creator. All of those books are on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. If you buy any of those books, I'll be grateful, but if you buy all 3, I'll enter you into a prize draw to win this keyring and badge. This is an exclusive set. There's only 20 of these. 2 of them have already gone out, so there's still 18 left of these to be won if you buy all 3 of these books and send me proof that you have them. Now back to the video. One thing that got me there, what you said, Imthishan, are you finally admitting what I've told you for years, that modifying cars is bad? Leave them as they, because Imtishan's a big one for modifying cars, and I've always said leave the cars as the manufacturer intended, because that's how it's meant to be.
Kinda, sorta. Kinda, sorta. Like, it depends. And I'm being semi-serious here. Like, I think cars that are pretty quick to begin with, you have a harder job. Cars that are average, you can take them to very interesting places. I think modifying really works with off-road cars. If you have a decent off-road car that hasn't been fettled by the manufacturer, you can, as long as the options are there, you can go pretty wild. Like, we love playing with our 20, 30-year-old Land Cruisers out in the desert because there isn't that much that you can do that you have to be precious with it. With the newer stuff, for example, a Defender Octa. What the dickens are you going to do to it? It's been honed to within an inch of its life. Nothing you do is going to make it better. And to be honest, the envelope of performance is so high that it is downright dangerous. The latest Raptor R I drove in the desert, I think I did a lap of the dunes and I came back, my legs were shaking. I'd never been that fast in a car before, off road. And I've been doing this a while. And I just said to my friend, I was like, I was just going to kill somebody. That thing is 700 horsepower. It goes up to like 120 kilometers per hour. I think that's what, 70 something in the dunes going uphill. And when you lose it, it's going to be bloody spectacular, you know? But on the road out here, I mean, it's the same thing as the UK. You can't go that fast, etc. You can't do anything. There's not much point of making a car faster.
So you haven't done anything to your Civic then?
No, what's the point? I think I put an exhaust on it
Because
just to make it
knowing
noisy. That's what.
knowing you, that's unusual. Because every new car that I've ever seen you buy, you've always gone and done something to it.
What would I do to the Civic? I mean, the suspension is, you'd make it soft. I mean, you'd lose the character because it's kind of compromised in ways that I like. You can make it softer and more comfortable. It's not a big deal. I would put a noisier exhaust because we're stuck with your European regulations, so the exhausts are shit. Actually, we can get away with loud exhaust out here, so I'd like to put a nice louder exhaust. That is it. The car as it is great because it's not perfect. I think perfection is really boring.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
true.
want to touch on a point that Jeff made earlier again about what people, influencers, and specifically related
Yeah.
to British journalism, right? So,
Actually, I was going to ask
influencers,
you, Imtishan, because just to enlighten everybody, in the last few years that you were doing the Millimedia, you were actually handling PR. You were doing PR, so you were on the other side. So you were handling journalists and influencers and stuff like that. So you've clearly seen the progression of how that whole landscape has changed.
and it has been a stark change, ladies and gentlemen, a stark change. But not all bad and not all good, like anything else. Because let's be honest, Shahzad, in our time, there were plenty of journalists who were not Harry Metcalf. There were plenty of people who weren't, the guy from Autocar, I always forget his name, the great one, all the great Australians who ran Autocar
Cropley.
Steve
cars.
Cropley.
Cropley, yeah.
Yeah, Cropley. And Gavin Green and all these people. They weren't all the best. A lot of people were lunch magnets, as I like to call them, or, at the grazing stations. But not everybody was great. And just like that, not every influencer is bad, not every influencer is great. But the difference is an influencer is telling you what they like, and a journalist is trying to suss out what you would like, the audience. That's the difference right there.
That was my
So
point. Yeah, that was my
one is
point.
completely pointed at you, and the other one is pointed at themselves. And a lot of people, it's like, I really like to know what Brad Pitt would drive. And the answer is he drove a bunch of G500s in the early 2000s when he still drove himself, which is kind of makes sense. He actually one of the first people to get G500s in the US. But I don't really want to know every day what a celebrity is doing because, as you say, there's no relatability, Jeff. There's no relatability. Like somebody's used to driving, Aston Martins is then going to review my Hillman Imp. He's going to either find it very shit, very amusing, or very boring. But it's not helping the person who wants to buy an Hillman Imp or the person who wants to be amused by an Hillman Imp. You know what I mean? So I think that's the typical influence. Is like, look, I bought a GT3, but today I'm doing something ridiculous. I'm driving an L322 Land Rover because that's what the algorithm told me to write about this week or talk about this week. But, out here in the Middle East, because I love British journalism, as you know, I've worked in it, but it's very different out here. You guys are very, very focused on what people think, or specifically, what would the neighbors think? I'd never be seen dead in XYZ. I'd never be seen dead in a Saab. I mean, if I was the right person in a Saab, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be seen in a Hyundai or a Kia or a Civic. In Dubai, people aren't like that. People are practical. There are your flash mob, etc., but they're them. But most people are like, does it do what I need it to do? Does it drive? Does it do the things I want? It's much more consumer journalism, which I like, because there's no bullshit. Having said that, as you said, Jeff, I have no bloody idea what half these cars are now these days. Somebody called me up yesterday and said, I can't decide, and this is an absolutely true conversation, between an Avatar and a 212 BAW. And I just stood there like this. I was like, what is that? He's like, what do you think of them? I desperately know what should I buy the BAW. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
I
If
don't
you
know what
know
you're
what it
talking
is,
about.
please.
No, I don't know. It sounds like a load of BAW to me.
Honestly, there's three
Exactly.
motoring journalists here that none of us know what these cars are.
I had to
What's going
Google
on?
it while he was talking.
Oh,
In the end, I
Jeff,
said to him something very simple. I'm like, okay. But you got to listen to people, folks. I think as journalists, and Shahzad knows me what I feel about this, right? We don't do enough listening to people. There was a time in the 70s and the 80s, and to some extent the golden era of the 90s, where we were perfectly balanced between doing what we wanted to do, whether it was drive to Morocco in a Testarossa, or do a group test with a bunch of, Range Rovers and patrols or whatever, or the latest Super Minis. We could balance what people wanted with our own muses. But now journalists disappeared pretty high up their own assholes, thinking that nothing was ever going to happen. And they just started doing stuff that to me is so self indulgent. I think there was a wonderful Intercooler article, and I love the Intercooler. I'm not going to cast shade on them, but I think it is self indulgent. Which is the greatest 911? Is it the GT3, the ST, or the RS 4.0? And I'm like, who cares? Who cares? They're all great. What difference does it make? I'm losing my mind.
Well, look,
But
but there's
I used
something.
to
There's
have.
something. I just want
BAW,
to add something there because, like you said, I mean, this thing about what do journalists want and what do consumers want, and this is something that I learned actually at
we
Parker.
left the door
And
open for influencers. We left the door
well,
open.
no,
It's our fault.
but this is the thing. It was the thing about what people actually want, and it's something I learned. I realized at Parker's and Used Car Buyer magazine because we would interact a lot with the actual, readers and audience and what have you. And what you got to realize after a while is that they weren't really looking for advice. What they were looking for was corroboration. What they were saying, we've already, in our head somewhere, we've already decided that we want this car, and we want some expert to tell us we're making the right choice. That's all they actually want. And so, and Imthishan knows this, I developed the policy that if I could see that somebody really wanted something, I'd be like, yeah, you should definitely get that car. I remember like talking to somebody in Dubai and he was getting a used Aston Martin and it's like, oh my God, oh, you are going to have such repair bills on that. And the dealer's not going to help. But I looked at him and I listened to him and I saw the passion and I said, dude, you should go buy the Aston.
You lied to his face.
Yeah, I lied to his face. I'm like, dude. And the thing is, sure enough, he sold it a year later because he was having too many problems with it. But for that 1 year, boy, did he enjoy himself, right?
But look at
Because
this.
he had an Aston Martin. Because he had an Aston Martin, not a BAW.
Imthishan, you were talking about Harry Metcalf earlier, and I'm just going to corroborate Shahzad's story here because when I was thinking about this Mini, I already had a petrol Cooper S that I was fiddling about with. I thought, oh, there's too many things go wrong with this. I'm fed up. I don't want to crawl under it every weekend. So I got rid of it, and I thought, right, I think I'm going to go for one of these electric Minis. Some great deals around because of the fact no one wants electric, apparently. Anyway, I was looking at it, and the first thing I did was I went onto YouTube, and of course Harry Metcalf comes up. He's testing.
He's
one.
got one. Yeah, he's got one. Has he bought one?
No,
No,
he was He was
Okay.
testing it, and I was looking for exactly the same as you were saying. I was thinking, I've made my mind up. I just want him to tell me it's a good choice. But I was really disappointed because he went through the card, but he spent so much time talking about the sound generator. It's got this mini thing that goes woo. You can turn that off, dude. It's not a problem, is it? It's a button. You just go off. So that's it.
So he liked it or he didn't like it?
He didn't like it, and he was
didn't like
moaning
it, right.
about it for ages. I mean, quite a disproportionate amount of time. And I thought, well, you turn it off. It's no biggie, is it? I mean, what's it really like as an owning proposition?
I mean,
And
to
I've
be
had it
honest,
now
I
for-
would just interject and conversely say that one of the reasons that one of my favorites electric cars is the BMW i4 M50 is because of the soundtrack that they got Hans Zimmer to put in it. Because it just adds that extra element of sensation. You need the sound. You need some kind of a sound, and I really like it for that. But
Well, I
yes,
agree
you
with
can
you.
always turn them off though.
Do you know, I was just talking to my missus just before we came on, and we were talking about that clip I sent you with Rory Sutherland.
Yeah, we'll come
And
on to that.
and we were discussing it, and we thought it was quite a good. I don't know the way he sort of unfolded it, but she said, well, the thing is though with electric, she said, I agree, it's got loads and loads going for it. She said, but the trouble is, if you're an enthusiast, the sound. I said, yes. I said, but I'm all for sound generators. I said, because any little oik can stick a fat exhaust on his 1300 Fiesta and make a lot of noise. I said, the younger people like that. In fact, some older people do. I mean, I had an Abarth, and I always used to press the open exhaust button before I went anywhere, and I'm not exactly a spring chicken, but there is that. But the newer Abarth, I don't know if you've driven one, the electric has a generator on the outside as well as inside. So you roll up and it's going boom, 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 boom. And my next door neighbour, when I borrowed one, he said, "Guy," he said, that sounds good. He said, "I thought they were all electric now." I said, "It is." He said, "But it's making the noise." I said, "Yeah, I know." But he said,
Well, I really, I don't know if they've got them there yet, Imthishan, but I'd quite like a go in that new Dodge Charger to see what is it, fratzonic chamber sound thing that it's got, because
Yeah.
I like sound,
I don't think anybody, I don't think we're thinking about bringing it here, but at the moment, Stellantis is in all kinds of trouble, and the cars are not selling
true.
out here, and Dodges, belatedly, after years and years of us telling them, they're finally slashing prices because they got ridiculously expensive. The Jeeps in particular, which were their cash cow, just doubled in price, and people stopped going off-road. So yeah, there was, and the Hellcats and the Challengers were cheap fun. That was their point. They were cheap, easy, and accessible. All muscle cars should have been. All the dealers and then the manufacturers got greedy and made the cars so expensive that their audience couldn't afford them anymore. And the kinds of people who were buying them weren't the kinds of people who actually liked muscle cars. They just bought everything else and they were bored and they wandered into the Dodge showroom. You know what I mean? They were not actually the kind of.
Well, you remember, Imthishan, when we were at ITP and I was the editor of Car Magazine, and you
Why
get
were you
all the-
doing this? You were the editor.
I was the editor of Car. So anyway, I can't believe it. Oh my God, I was. Yeah, I was. Anyway, so you'd get all the, because ITP was the biggest publisher in town in Dubai, and they'd hire a lot of British expats to come and work for them, and invariably they'd find their way to my desk after they'd
I know
settled
where the
down and
story's
everything
going.
like that, and they'd be like, what car should I get? And I said, well, what car do you want? And they'd be like, oh, I really fancy a GTI and this and that. I'm like, well, why do you want a GTI? Oh, because I've always wanted one. And I'm like, do you realize where you are? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, have you seen the price of petrol here? And have you seen the space we have on our roads? Whilst you're here, you should go out and buy the biggest goddamn V8 you can buy, because this is the only time you're going to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
invariably, the ITP car park just filled up with Camaros and Rams and Dodges and stuff like that, because people are like, yeah, I should just buy the biggest V8 I can, you know?
Well, it's the opportunity, and you should never pass opportunity up. What's one thing I've learned throughout my whole life?
Yeah.
Never pass an opportunity. If it's there, grab it.
Coming back to this Rory Sutherland thing, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, Imthishan, but are you familiar with him?
Nope, no idea who he is.
I have seen a few of his videos. He's like a marketing guru. And he was talking about the whole thing about understanding or the transition to electric. And he said, what if the roles were reversed? What if actually we'd had a, actually, Jeff, you explain it because you'd sent it through.
Yeah, I mean, but basically his premise was, if we'd been driving electric cars for 100 years, and then suddenly an engineer came along and said, hey, I've got this great idea, and invented a petrol engine in 2025. So yeah, everyone says, well, okay, that's brilliant. So what does it involve? Right, well, it involves you need a big lump of iron, you need about 1,000 moving parts in it, and then you need a sort of a tank to go with it and put explosive material in it, and then you run that material into the thing with 1,000 parts, and you make explosions. And I go, whoa, hold on. And
You can't fill it up at home, and it's dirty and it's smelly and it makes a little noise. But I mean, I think the point that was being raised there is that, are we caught up in our ways? We feel that electric is encroaching upon 130 years of fun that we've been having with the internal combustion engine. But are we stuck in our ways? Are we just holding on to something that was never truly good in the first place? Or is it just the nature of programming? Or what is it exactly? Or is it an emotional pull?
well, I can answer that. I think is that because part of my toolkit is behavioural science, and it's what makes people do things. Because you'll see an advert and it'll have thousands of clicks, and you'll see another advert that has hundreds. And the reason is that you've put something on that one ad that's inspired someone to take an action, i.e., click on it. And it's the same with absolutely everything, and it's certainly the same with electric. And I'm not an evangelist for electric, even though I've bought an electric car. I've got all sorts of cars, but I do realise that electric is bloody good. It ticks virtually all the boxes. I think there's two things: expense. There's a perceived expense, which I think the manufacturers are addressing with these smaller cars, which is great in my book because I love small cars. The smaller the better. Make them small. That's got to be good. But secondly, is the perception of range anxiety, and Sutherland makes this point in his vid that you can have range anxiety in a petrol car. Look at Stormzy. He ran out in Camden High Street the other day in his Lamborghini, and so it can happen to anybody, can't it?
Yeah, well, I remember a particular episode when I had got to rescue one of your predecessors, Imthishan. It was John Saxon when he demolished his Golf over in the empty quarter on the way to Leeway. He never quite made it to Leeway. I had to go rescue him, and I was in the family CRV, and I hadn't fueled it up. And on the way back, we were literally like, I was literally had turned the AC off and everything, just gliding along, hoping. And there's did you know this? There was a tiny little petrol station at the Sheikh Hamad Museum. So there's actually there's one petrol pump there, and actually that's where we filled up. That was crazy. But yeah, that was range anxiety like I've never had in my life. Honestly, I didn't want to run out of petrol in the middle of a desert.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the thing in the UK. We don't have a desert. Well, I suppose we do in some ways. It's a cultural desert. But the thing is that you're always going to be near some sort of top up place. And I mean, I drove down to I don't know, it's about 120 miles the other day, and the Mini had 220 on the clock. I thought, well, that's fine. I took it easy, and I got to where I needed to go. But I thought, you know what, I've got to come back as well, and I'm going to do that in a couple of days' time. So what I'll do is I'll zip into Cobham Services, where they got loads and loads and loads of chargers, and I'll easily fill up there. Try one, no, out of order. No, that one's not compatible with you. And there's a lot of fiddling about, and it was raining, and I was swearing a lot, and I just thought, oh God, But if I'd have actually literally had 5 miles in it, that would have been even worse. But I had loads, and I just thought, oh, I'll do it later. But I think that, to me, is the biggest issue with electric cars. There is a massive perception of I'm going to run out, and it's going to take me ages to fill it up if I'm somewhere where depth of night. If you're a girl who's vulnerable and it's black and you're in some godforsaken dark car park, you're not really going to sit there for an hour, are you? So, but I think there's what they should have done. But we're all politicians, aren't we? But what they should have done, instead of virtue signalling like they do, is say, right, let's be pragmatic about this and phase the fossil fuel ones out as we phase in the electric or hydrogen or whatever it's going to be. And that way,
but Imthishan, it's a different world view on the other side of the world, isn't it? Where, okay, I mean, there is a token nod towards electric, but I think there are parts of the world where there's no way that they're ready to give up, on the internal combustion engine.
We have everything electric on sale here thanks to China. So we have access to cars that you can only dream about in the UK and mainland Europe. We have the full range of Chinese cars, and I would say more than most parts of the world because of our proximity to China. But the reality is there haven't been that many takers. The kinds of people who bought them are well-off dabblers, as I like to say. People who are like, oh, I'd like something different this year. I'm going to have an electric car. And they always got a Range Rover in the back. So they're not relying on it to get anywhere. For them, they have their own charging, etc. It's not a problem. Structure, I've seen in China now, the latest infrastructure is you can dump a ton of charge in about 20 minutes. Way more than most people need. China's so far ahead that they don't make sense for them to go to, but they've been investing in it, millions and billions of yuan. But on the other hand, we in Dubai haven't, and most of the world hasn't. So one part of the world has shot off into the future, the other half is living in the past. So this mismatch, much like our cultures at the moment, is the problem. We can't decide. And China is like, okay, we're now going to dictate the future to everybody else. And everybody else doesn't necessarily want to have that. Like a lot of these Chinese cars, the thing about Dubai is, and I don't know if it's the same in the UK, I couldn't tell you. Cars here are your personality. They're not about, even though we need cars to get everywhere because we don't have a proper public transit system that can really get you to every part of the country. Inside Dubai, you're pretty much okay now, but everywhere else you need a car. A car is you, and you are your car. So a lot of people say that car, I need to represent me in ways outside of being practical or pragmatic. And a Chinese car is actually fine because the Chinese car now tells people, oh, I'm forward thinking. I've got technology. I've got the future. I'm not tied to old brands. A lot of the young people are like, we don't care about your old brands. But people who are enthusiasts, they're not touching Chinese cars. Not touching electric cars.
Can I add something there then? Because if I look at my portfolio of motors, I've got the smart car, I've got the 7 Series, I've got the electric Mini. So I'm right up to date. I'm ancient with the BMW, and the smart is just left field. And but frankly, I can get into any of those cars on any particular given day. But I've got to be in the right mood for each car. Okay, so I'm lucky to have several. But the thing is that sometimes I just want to drive the smart because not only do I like it, I love what it represents, because nobody can have a go at me. I've never been flipped off in a smart. I've honestly never, ever. But whereas in my Porsche Cayman, it was like that all the time, everywhere, every junction.
You aren't very nice.
They're not. Don't come over here.
I mean,
And
that's quite
Save
nice in Dubai.
yourself.
You can't do that. As Shahzad well
Yeah, no,
knows,
it's
you can't
actually
do that in the.
it's actually technically illegal. You could actually be, you'll get arrested for it
for what?
for showing somebody the bird in the UAE.
Oh, I'll remember that next
Yeah.
time because I mean, I don't do it myself because my American friends have educated me out of it. I think is the best way because I was in Dallas and I'm driving along and this guy cut us out and I give him their finger and they go, dude, don't do that. I said, why? He's got guns.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
different reason.
I mean, I actually went out with out there a few months ago, and we're sitting there in their living room, and my mate, he's a ex DEA officer, okay, and he's ex Marine and all the rest of it, so he knows how to handle guns. He's got hundreds of the things, and he's got a Mercedes SL supercharged 55 and so in Dallas it's pretty hot and then he said right okay we've run out of gin. I said oh right. And so he's looking at his watch, said it's 7:45, we can just get down to the liquor store. So I said fine, okay. So we're just going out the door. He said which one do you want? I said what do you mean? He said, and he's pointing to his gun cabinet. I said well, he said well
What are you going to do? Hold up the place?
in went the Glock, and that's it. So we're on the way there, and I said to him, "Man, I said this is crazy." I said, "Why do you need a gun to go to the liquor store?" He said, "They always get robbed at closing time." He said, "So you've got to be protected," and that's their culture. And so when he says, "Don't flip someone off because you'll get shot," in Texas they've got a concealed carry facility. So basically, you don't know who you're looking at and who you're talking to. That really did actually focus my mind on doing it back here. So you never know who you're dealing with. So I thought, no, okay, well I'll just not do it. In fact, I got cut up this very morning by someone just coming to a junction. Car cut it off, as they do, right across. Oh, so I anchored up, and I just went like that, and I heard this, on the horn, and the old flip off came and everything, and I'm thinking, well, you were clearly in the wrong there, but again, the behavioural psychology comes in. Because I went like that, they had to have the last word. It's human nature to think, well, I didn't do anything wrong, or even if I did do something wrong, I'm not going to fess up to it. So they probably felt better by answering back, but I didn't do anything apart from put my hands up.
No, to be honest, like now you can't over here. It's very dangerous because of the increasing in not so many guns, but increasing stabbing, what have you. Yesterday there was a news item. This is in London, where these guys on scooters are stealing people's bicycles, wielding an axe. They're pushing these bikers over with an axe, and then they're attacking them with an axe just to steal their bicycles. I mean, this is how bad things are getting here. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, that's an interesting point, Shahzad. I just interject there because I was thinking about this, and all these Aston Martins and stuff that I've had, and Porsches and that. I don't feel the need for one anymore, and part of the reason is this change in social structure, I suppose. Because if I'm driving the Smart, for instance, I'm classless, and people can laugh at me. I don't care, but it's fine. There's no way, someone's going to get annoyed. Whereas you're driving something flash, and you're perceived to be flash. If you're outside the right area and you're in a wrong area, you're going to attract attention and all the wrong attention, and I don't want that. So, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Now with things like that Mini, the Smart, they're below the radar type things,
Not a problem we have in UAE, is it, Imthishan?
I have a simple solution to all. I'm just poor. I can go anywhere I want, man. I can go anywhere at all. Nobody's gonna rob me. They look at him and like, yeah, he's fine. He's doing worse than we are. It's a good solution to all the problems of the world. But I do want to sort of ask the question to the panel: do journalists, who knows what people want? I'm kind of obsessed with this idea now. Do we as journalists know what people want, or do influencers know what people want?
I think influencers don't necessarily know what people want. Influencers are very good at what they're doing. This is not to detract anything from what they do, but they're great at content. So they're single-minded about their content to the point where very often you see with influencers that it's repetitive content. It's exactly the same format every time because they've stumbled or they've mastered something that works for them and they'll just do that. That's not relevant to a service they're providing. That's just relevant to the views that they're getting. In terms of journalism, I think some journalists that are actually dedicated, that are doing this for the right reasons, will try to understand what the market is, what the audience is for every specific car, and try to analyze it on that sense. It's like I've always said, you're not reviewing the car for yourself, you're reviewing the car for your audience, and that's the way you should look at it. So I think that yes, we do try, and at the end of the day, like going back to what we were saying earlier, it's almost if you're actually in contact, if you're talking to somebody or you're messaging somebody, the main thing to do is to find out what exactly do they want, because what they want is what they've already decided, and what they want from you is corroboration to say they're not
Yeah.
making the ultimate bad decision, which in most cases they're not, because there's no such thing really as a bad car anymore. Although I've heard that, what is it, Stepwell B09 or something? A bunch of journalists were slagging that off at dinner the other night. So I don't know, maybe there is such a thing as a bad car, but most cars are pretty good. Anyway, what do you reckon, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I have to totally agree with you on that. It's the the good influencers do in fact reference um, their customer, if you like, basically their viewer, and that they'll review the car for the people that are genuinely looking for that sort of car. The worst ones are the ones who have no reference points and no barometer whatsoever. All they're interested in is what they think of it for themselves, you know. And there are loads and loads of those. In fact, there are too many. The problem is that YouTube has made it very easy and easier over the years to just set up your own channel and call yourself what you like. And that doesn't apply to you, obviously. But you know, the you can tell with your 36,000 subscribers, you're giving the everyone what they're after. You know, that you're genuine, informed
But
content.
like you say, that hasn't come from working in a digital space. I mean, Imthishan and I are both from, and yourself, of course, are all from print backgrounds,
That's
and
correct. Yeah,
we're all basically trained journalists. So we've come up through that whole process of understanding the point of getting information, packaging it, and supplying it in a form that the
yeah,
audience wants.
yeah, absolutely. And that's. But again, I think the other issue here is that, I mean, as you know, I published a classic car magazine.
Oh, I do.
Yes, because Shahzad was writing for it. And a very good column as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
But ultimately, we had to close it because of lockdown and no footfall in the stores. You know, you can't just have all the overheads and none of the sales, which was devastating because we were really cutting through. We were using all of our analog expertise and basically putting that into the digital age. The Because we had it on the app, you could get it on an app, you could read it all sorts of ways. So whichever was your chosen way of reading something, you could get it, and that was quite unusual from the off. But that aside, that I think the landscape in the last 5 years has shifted even further in that I'm looking at what do you call it, YouTube, and the number of shorts on there are just phenomenal. And there's a lot of this doom scrolling thing, isn't there? Like people just scroll through the shorts and things, and because people's uh, attention span with a busy lifestyle now has got so small, you know, a minute is too long for some of these people. You know, you think, my God. So this is where it's going. You need to sort of condense your message into a minute these days. That's the way it's going, and I don't know where it goes from here because it's exponential. I think I was reading somewhere the other day in an esteemed journal that we've had more change in the last 5 years than we've had in the last 30.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can go with that.
humans can take change. We're very adaptable species, and that's on record. But what we can't do is adapt too quickly. So if we're being asked to adapt as quickly as we are now, we become very unsettled. And you've only got to look at the mood. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the Middle East, but it certainly is here. I detect a very unsettled sort of mood in society, and I genuinely feel it's because of the sheer pace of change that we're expected to absorb. And you hear all the politicians talking about this change. Well, nobody wants change to happen like overnight, because if you do, you become very destabilized. And again, this is another part of the problem, I think, is that because everything is moving so quickly, as humans, we're just not used to, we're not programmed to do that, because basically we're still animals.
Anyway, talking of attention spans, we have gone way over our allotted hour. But before we close, I got Ibrahim was just asking. This is on the live version of this broadcast, and he said, obviously I don't think he's talking about you, Imthishan, but he's asking, are either of you going to be at the NEC show, classic show? I'm still not 100% sure about it. He did mention the Harry Metcalf's collection is going to be there as well. I think he's selling some of them.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm going to go, because I think that's going to be quite an interesting show. I mean, the trouble is though, Shahzad, with you're still mourning your baby, so going to see other classics there might sort of put you over the edge.
Yeah,
I've still
when you sent me a picture of your 89 7 Series, I was like, oh.
Yeah, Shahzad went into sort of into his bottom lip was quivering.
It really was. But
shame
anyway,
we haven't got a picture. We could put it up here.
I will add it to the edited version.
Yeah,
but before we go, I wanted to ask them, because this is Halloween. It's Halloween week, and last year I did a feature where I compiled the most haunted roads in the world. So I wanted to ask each of you, if you were commissioned to do a feature where you actually had to go and drive these most haunted roads in the world, what car would you use and why?
Okay, I've got 3, I think.
No, I said what car? You got to choose one.
Come on.
No, one car.
Okay, it'll be a Lamborghini Murcielago.
Really?
And you know why?
Not even a Diablo, but a Murcielago.
No, the Murcielago, because that's Spanish for bat.
Fair enough.
And it's a Lamborghini anyway, so I'm quite happy with that. But I'd also go for a Rolls-Royce Ghost.
There you go. Imthishan?
Hold up. And
you got one more? Come on, go on then.
Alfa Romeo Spider.
Alfa Romeo Spider, all right. Imthishan?
Why does the Alpha Spider scream Halloween or ghost story?
I don't know why the spider was in there.
Spiders!
I mean, it's tenuous. I'm going to give you one car. I'm going to break the mold. Just give you one car. Thanks. But I think something that suits... I'm a mood guy. You know this, Shahzad. I'm always a mood guy. Buick Grand National. GNX,
wow.
I think. A black GNX, which only came in black.
I think they only came in black. Yeah.
80.
Yeah.
85, mid-80s.
85, sorry, yes.
The Turbo V6.
85. Yeah, that's still a seriously respected bit of kit, and it's very dark and sort of a good one, I like that.
Very good. I'm gonna go for an obvious one, very obvious one. Dodge Demon, Dodge Demon. Come on, it's badass. It looks the part, and it's called a demon. Come on, what else are you gonna go take?
The problem is the number of petrol stops you'd have to make on this trip.
Well, you could have had an AMC Gremlin.
Oh.
No, he couldn't have.
You know what? Let the puns continue in the comments, because I think we've started something off there, but this will be great. Anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on this latest therapy session from the Brown Car Guy.
Thanks, guys.
Next week, I think I won't be doing a live one, at least next week, just for anybody that's tuning in, because I'm going to be, what is it? There's a show at Pall Mall. The RAC thing.
RAC Club, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be there on the Saturday. So probably we'll give next week a miss, and then we'll be back the following week, or unless I do a recorded one in between. But thanks very much for joining us. and we'll catch you all again very, very soon. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links, or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.